every organization needs to ensure it has the right number of people with the right skills in the right roles. Organizations also need to ensure it has the right people, not only for the present time, but also for the future. Workforce planning is the process to ensure that an organization has right number of people with right skills and in right roles both for now and also for the future. Workforce planning is an open-ended process. This process is a continuous cycle. It has 5 stages. First stage is known as stocktaking. Second stage is forecasting. Third is developing action plan. Fourth is implementation. And the fifth and final stage is assessment. Stocktaking is the first stage in the cycle. In this stage, organization looks into both external and internal factors that impact its operations. External factors include many elements, such as economic conditions, employment laws, and technological environment. External forces cannot be controlled by the organization, but organizations may control its internal factors. Internal factors include many components, such as size and profile of the workforce, skill level of the organization, working conditions, and performance level. After stocktaking, the next stage in the workforce planning cycle is forecasting. During forecasting, the organization will examine the skills, competencies, motivation, and knowledge of their workforce. At this stage, the organization also develops succession planning. If any employees suddenly leave the organization must be able to immediately substitute for him. During forecasting, the organization must predict 2 things. 1. The supply of labor, and 2. The demand for labor. In other words, organizations will determine how many people it will have in the future and how many people it will need. Let us consider an example of a new company which recognizes the need for more sales executives to support its growth. So, the company needs to plan how to fulfill the demand of sales executives. It will forecast the supply of labor. Supply of labor can come from internal source or external sources. People from other departments of the company can be transferred to take up the roles of sales executives. This is an example of internal supply of labor. But if there is no internal supply, then the organization will look outside itself. It will hire salespeople from the external labor market. This is called external source of labor supply. After forecasting, third stage of workforce planning cycle is developing action plans. If demand and supply of labor is equal, then there is balance. No action is required. If demand is more than supply, then the scenario is called labor shortage. If labor demand is less than labor supply, then the situation is labor surplus. If there is labor shortage, organization may recruit more employees and retrain current employees. On the other hand, if there is labor surplus, then the organization may lay off some employees, encourage early retirement, and reduce working hours for employees. Fourth stage of workforce planning cycle is implementation. Once an organization has made its decision to hire new employees because of labor shortage, it simply needs to implement this decision. If an organization has decided to reduce employees because of labor surplus, it simply needs to downsize. This is the basics of implementation of action plans. But during implementation, if required, there should be constant monitoring and adjustment of the plan. Let's take an example of an organization which has decided to develop some young employees and prepare them for future. In case any senior employee leaves the company, the young employees will replace them. This was company succession planning. But when a senior employee actually leaves, Organization realizes that no one among the young employees is yet ready to fill up the vacancy. So, it needs to recruit from the external labor market for the vacancy. This is an example of a scenario where organization was forced to adjust its action plan. So, if situation demands, organizations may revise action plans during implementation stage. The final stage of workforce planning is the assessment stage. In this stage, organizations will evaluate whether the action plans have helped the organization to achieve strategic goals. Let us take an example of an organization which had decided to downsize a large chunk of its middle managers as a response to labor surplus. It may later realize that the economic logic of downsizing came at a cost. The organization has realized that not having mid-level management has created chaos within its environment. The organization has assessed that its decision to terminate mid-level management was not a good action. So once an action has been implemented, it needs to be evaluated so that any success of the workforce planning can be repeated and any failures of the process can be avoided in the future.